Welcome to the Universal Dancer podcast with your host Leslie Zehr, author of The Alchemy of Dance and the Alchemia Remedies. Coming to you live from Cairo, Egypt, the ancient land of Chem. Journey with us to explore sacred dance, the sacred arts, the mystical and the magical. Join a community of like-minded souls seeking to understand the cosmic dance of co-creation through the sacred arts. Come along and expand your mind, ignite your creativity, and explore something new and something old. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here, for those of you who are here live. And please like and share the podcast. If you know people who'd be interested to join, let them join us. You can put comments in the comments box, and we'll see that if you have any questions during the podcast. So I'm just going to jump right in and introduce you to my guest for this week. Alana Shaw is a transformational guide, workshop leader, author, artist, and one of the USA's leading experts in embodiment and art-based social change work. An empowering speaker and facilitator, Alana has guided joyful and healing embodiment events in cities in the USA and Canada for over 30 years. Her dynamic and energetic presentation style is experiential, humorous, transforming, and consistently positive for her participants. Exploring beyond talk through improvisation, play, creativity fosters a landscape of deep healing and joy. Following a deep-seated calling to serve youth from a body-aware paradigm of love, Alana founded Turning the Wheel, a national nonprofit that has touched the lives of over 150,000 people in more than 2,000 diverse schools and organizations in the USA. Turning the Wheel uses the power of expressive art to build healthy communities, foster leaders, and share the joy of self-expression with participants of all ages, economic situations, genders, ethnic backgrounds, and challenges. The organization and its team have produced and toured 12 community-based performances over the last 32 years, developed a certification program called The Body Now to train facilitators to serve underprivileged populations, and have established several branches around the country to provide ongoing service in their communities. Alana holds an MFA in dance from the University of Colorado with a thesis on healing and integration through creative expression. She is also a certified Hendricks Body-Mind Vibrance coach and works with individuals and couples therapeutically from her home office in the mountains above Boulder, Colorado. Alana wrote her first book, Dancing Our Way Home, as a companion for those with a deep commitment to providing youth with essential life skills through the arts. The Body Now followed, which is the work that emerged out of her experience guiding adults towards healing, authenticity, and wholeness through the body and creative expression. Alana's mission to inspire a new paradigm for inclusiveness, collaboration, and community engagement remains paramount in all projects in which she invests her heart-filled commitment. Let's welcome Alana to the show. Welcome, Alana. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
I like to jump right in with just asking you about how you personally got involved in dance to begin with, in the very beginning. How did it start for you?
Oh, that's a fun question. I think it was always something I was wanting. I remember I grew up in the country, and there was a nearby church you could walk to, and they had a ballet class in the basement, and I snuck into the ballet class and kept saying that my mom was going to come and pay. And finally, when my mom never showed up, they sent me away. but I really, I was only like 8 or 9 years old, and I so wanted to be a part of that. So I think it's always been part of my longing and my, music, dance, art, drawing, everything in the creative arts. And as I began to try to heal from a very violent and abusive family story, I found movement, I found dance and wonderful dance teachers who would let me bring my little kids and line them up along the wall with their crayons and take class, which was a great gift to me. And I began to rediscover who I was as I moved in these actually very traditional jazz and modern and ballet classes. It's not improvisational at all, which is my passion now, the movement from each person's own body. But it was very, very healing for me. So it was really the modality which began to walk me out of a story that I didn't need anymore.
And then you went on to do an MFA in dance.
Yeah, that's another whole story, Leslie. I was in 50 when I graduated with my MFA. I used to go in the dressing room with the other students, and they thought I was a teacher. Everything would get quiet in the room, while I was in there. Um, but that was a sort of a realization of a dream. My children were mostly where they could I could do go back to school, and so I went back to school, and I had an incredible mentor, Nancy Spanier, who made it possible for me to actually navigate graduate school with a family. And at my age, she absolutely insisted that I not take any ballet because it was too hard on my hips, and a healthy perspective on dance. And yeah, I had started at Naropa and in the somatic psychology master's program, and ended up transferring all those credits into the CU program, which was a little more open to my improvisational approach to life. So felt very blessed, very lucky to get to do that. And in that process of that, founded Turning the Wheel in 1989, which is a long time ago now. But and it was partly, through that whole encouragement of that graduate program that I began to believe that what I had to offer had value. That was a big step.
So tell us about Turning the Wheel. Tell us a little bit about what it is and what it entails. This came after you did your master's, or it
During,
okay.
I mean, sort
So
of, yeah, all kind of was opening up at the same time. Yeah. Well, we started with community performance, and then an honoring of Eloise Ristat, who was a great teacher on the earth, and she had died in a boating accident. So the whole thing kind of happened in order to honor her life. And so it was intergenerational from the start, because it was all these different people coming together who'd studied and learned from her to do a performance piece in honor of her life. And as we continued on, we wanted those young teens and young kids who had naturally come in as a part of the Eloise celebration to come in. So then we started reaching out into the schools to find those kids who needed us. And so it was just kind of organic, little step by little step, as we said earlier. And yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was just believing that getting in the bodies, moving, dancing, held the key to healing for a lot of folks who'd been through trauma, and they'd had a lot of other modalities that they had explored that had brought them, cognitive insight, but not sustainable change in terms of their lives and how it felt to be on the earth. And so my own experience in that was something I wanted to bring. I mean, I was really little when I was literally watching my father, I don't want to get too graphic, but be violence to my brothers. And I knew then that someday I would do something about that, that had to change, that had to not. And even though I was very little, I remember this is wrong, this is not okay. And And so it had been growing, I think, all my life. And I had 7 kids of my own and 8 grandchildren, and kids have always been my thing for sure. And then as it grew, I found out that impacting the adults who interact with the kids and who create the community around the kids was as important as the youth, that it's all part of the same story. So we basically have 3 prongs in turning the wheel. One is really youth centered, and that's a huge, biggest percentage of our work, outreach to all the vulnerable and challenged, and also leaders of youth in the whole, country. And the other is this incredible community performance thing, which is where so much of my passion lies, where we bring all these people together from different parts of a community who might never interact to create a piece of art together that's highly produced and highly professional, and express their own stories and their own body knowing. And so it's a very unusual performance form. And then our other prong is basically all the outreach to adults and people in rehab and different recovering from various kinds of cancers and challenges, and people who just want to enhance their life experience, sort of that whole more maybe more somewhat therapeutic branch, that heads that direction. So it's a complex organization to run and also to describe, but it's all based in embodiment. It's all based in how do we begin to live from the wisdom of our bodies, and let go of old stories and cultural constructs that are governing us without us even knowing it.
Well, and I think that this is such a hot topic at the moment. I don't know if it's because of the pandemic, or maybe it's just my attention bias that I've noticed it, but I've attended three summits in the last month about trauma, and all of them coming back to embodiment and how important that has been. And I suppose that the pandemic has stirred the pot, that this obviously you created this organization, and other people have been doing research for decades, but I think now it's really coming to the forefront in
Yes.
consciousness, like in mass consciousness. And that's so important because I agree with you that we have to help the youth. I also have an affinity towards working with children, or helping children, or whatever it is, because I do think they're the future. But yes, the parents, the caregivers, the adults are
Yeah.
traumatized as well, and the society is set up to re-traumatize or to traumatize people. So I think it has to be this shift across age groups that are all going to interact or work together, because we don't want to just keep re-traumatizing the next generation. I didn't actually realize, I like to do some research before the podcast, but not too much, because I do want this to be a conversation. So you
That's
can't
great.
imagine how timely this conversation is, given what I've been doing in the last month. So yes, I'm so happy to have this conversation with you. And I agree about embodiment and the healing aspects of creativity, or some kind of creative expression. You did your thesis on healing and reintegration through creative expression. What does that mean? Like, what does that mean to you? How would you explain that concept, or how do you do that?
Well, that's a great question. I was thinking about what you just said, just to back up for 1 minute, which is when we started 33 years ago, or 30, yeah, whatever it's been, the we were considered kind of silly. Like, how could kids moving and playing do anything to help them learn, right? And now all of the research and all the social emotional well-being of children emphasis totally affirms everything we've been doing for all these years. And we just knew it intuitively, and that comes back to your question, which is the body is the fundamental mechanism of change. That is where change will happen. And and there's no more important relationship on the earth than the one to ourselves, to our own sacred beings, and that's where the healing begins. It's very difficult to come into relationship with yourself, like you say, in a culture that's primarily traumatizing us daily. And that's trauma defined more loosely than it used to be. We're not talking about people who came from the kind of background I came from. We're all being traumatized every day in various ways. And we put our children under intense stress all day long at very young ages. I mean, I was in a kindergarten class recently where they're teaching reading and writing at 4 and 5 years of age, which is way before their nervous system is ready to be doing that. They should be having their hands in water and mud and
Playing. Yeah.
beans and playing. Yeah, and so I think it's the the issue is, how do we awaken our bodies? How do we listen to our bodies, actually inhabit our bodies, and through that process begin to reclaim and rediscover and reintegrate the parts of ourselves that we've left behind? And we left them behind because we had to. There wasn't any choice. That's how we survived. That's how I got up off the floor and walked forward, by leaving behind some of my empowerment, by becoming quieter, becoming less, becoming more invisible. That was safer. And ultimately, I had to rediscover my visibility. And that's what working in the body does. And that's what movement does. And every person at every level can benefit from this kind of discovery, reinvention, reclaiming of self. It's really exciting to me because we talk sometimes about people who are entitled, and they're just frightened, they're just insecure, they just don't have their deepest self. And so that's a way to try to exist, try to hang on to themselves. And I watched such powerful transformation in just 1 week of working with people. We see people's whole lives turn around, and I'm not fixing them. I'm not knowing what they need. I'm not laying some system on them. We open up a space for people to discover themselves in, to move and breathe and play and express and find out what it is about themselves that they want to bring forward. It might be something I've never seen and don't have any idea of. I think it's a model that's becoming more and more mainstream, that we don't therapize people, but offer an opportunity for them to discover who they are. I don't know if that answered your question at all
Yes.
or not.
Absolutely. And I think you're reintroducing them to their body, which is a piece that they have lost. And something that came to me while you were
Yeah,
speaking that might be obvious to everybody else, but I had never thought about it until you were talking. You said something about entitlement, and I think about people who are so fixed on like material things. And I wonder if that isn't as a replacement for their own body, which they're not in touch with. Like they instinctively know they need to connect to the material world somehow, and they're
right.
not doing it internally through their own body or using their body as that. So perhaps they're looking outside of themselves to possessions to somehow, hold on and connect to that material world.
Well, I think, I can definitely say yes to that in terms of my own life, that even during the pandemic, I found myself in living totally isolated, which I did in order to stay safe, the pre-vaccination. And I was amazed at how much I wanted to buy things and how much I wanted to eat things that weren't good for me, treats, and the ways in which I started to reach outside my own body and for some kind of relief, some kind of I don't know, enjoyment, joy, pleasure, and had to really come back to putting the music on and dancing every day instead of buying something every day. Or, I mean, I think it's its own form of Western pull, Western addiction, to the Western civilizations in general, and certainly in the United States. And I mean, I really don't think there's anything wrong with buying something pretty that you want to buy. I'm not meaning that as a judgment at all, but I just felt a kind of a different pull towards that because the interaction with other humans, dancing with other humans, playing with other humans, being in the room with all these beautiful children, that was all taken away. And so I started culturally conditioned to fill that with something that didn't fill it at all, and I find that's a really easy direction to go for all of us in our lives too. And I think there's, I'm really into dance and movement and music and creating, and I also know you can bike, you can go for long hikes, there's all kinds of other ways, that you can begin to get into your body. And then I think the next step is to find that spontaneous expression of yourself. And that is hard to do riding a bike, That's where the ecstatic dance, the conscious dancers around the world, the people bringing improvisational movement where all they're doing is holding a beautiful, safe container and playing beautiful music and loving the people in the room. They're beginning to discover, as we do every day, who are we in our spontaneous selves? What wants to show up right now in this moment? Which is very different than what comes out if I plan, and they're both good. I definitely like my mind. I value my mind, but it's that heart-centered story that opens up my life to where I not only feel good every day and live my days in peace, but I have something to offer from that heart place. And it's hard to find that offering without some opportunity to play in my heart place, to connect to the heart of the world has to do with being in your own heart and moving from that place.
But I think that's hard for a lot of people because I found in my own dance classes when people come, very often they want to be told what to do. That spontaneousness that I think is important, that connection of, letting the music move through you however it wants to. I think for someone who has never had that experience, that can be difficult. It can be intimidating to suddenly be left on your own to create something when you don't. And children just automatically do that. They hear music and they're going to move however they want to. But then I think as we become educated or programmed or whatever you want to call it, we go to schools and we're taught that there's a right and a wrong way to do it. I think it's really difficult for some people to just let go, which I think is
Well,
why this kind of conscious dance and ecstatic dance and all these kind of things have become popular because, like you said, we need a container, and the facilitator can provide that container and help to guide people, I think, to find back to themselves.
yeah, that's really powerful, Leslie, because sometimes from the old time improvisational story way back when we were first beginning it, people would say, yeah, but I just was standing there in the middle of the room and I didn't know what to do, and it felt scary. And that's why we have a whole 400-page book of things you can do like this. That's why we have all kinds of structured improvisational forms. So it begins with a possibility that is directional, and then it moves where it moves. Like people running in the room, making little shapes together, something we call seeds, where somebody runs and a whole group runs after them and freezes around them. Then somebody else runs and a whole group runs and freezes. And that sounds very structured, but it turns out to be a really easy way for people jump into play in a and the fun of, and then watching what other people are doing, and just simple forms, and even things like follow the leader, where I follow you and you follow me. Now I have a partner. Now I'm not just standing there by myself in the room. I'm relating to somebody else. It's safer. There's a ground. I mean, that's just a couple of examples, but I really hear what you're saying. It's not, sometimes it's only people who already have discovered their spontaneity who do well in a totally unstructured class. And, and I have to tell you that many of our children that we work with have do not just move to music anymore. The amount of violence and fear and substance abuse and change and uncertainty in their homes, we have to get them moving really quickly with really fun games as fast as we can before they even realize what they're doing, because moving in their bodies is not something they can do anymore. Even by age 5 or 6, we see kids who have come into a stillness. Kids who had 3,000 loggable movements at 6 months of age, 3,000 identifiable movements, are down to less than 100. And so we're condensing and condensing and condensing the body language of our children for them to be safe, for them to be able to survive in conventional classrooms, whatever the reasons are. By preschool, they're already beginning to reduce and that reduces their brain, that reduces their ability to think and show up and live a joyful life. So part of our work is helping them rediscover their own body language. It's their own body movements. But it's a journey out, and we have some groups we work with for several years in a row, and we watch them from kindergarten to first to second to third, and then enter middle school, and watch them grow and rediscover their body language. But they're going back to unsafe environments after they're with us, and so it's a long, journey out for many of them, but it is the way out. That I know from all these years of doing it, they can get out.
So let's go back to turning the wheel. This organization, what do you do? Like, tell us what kind. I know you do trainings and things, but do you have workshops? How does it work exactly?
Well, in terms of the youth outreach, we go to the youth. So we have learned not to try to gather youth to us. It's too complex, transportation and all kinds of different things. So we work in after school programs. We partner with teachers across the country who want this kind of activity in their classrooms. We teach the teachers. We have teacher trainings so that they can bring the simple things that we do into the classroom, so that they can, when they see their class start to disintegrate, have all the kids get up and change places in the room and start, playing games, following each other, copying each other, getting in their bodies. And after just 10 minutes of that, the kids sit down and can focus again. And so we have groups all over the country now who go into the schools and work with the kids and do week-long residencies. And then those kids perform at the end of the week or the end of 8 weeks, depending on how it is in various schools. And so now they're being seen by their school, by their classmates. It's just really incredible what happens once they actually do a performance for the whole student body, and more important, what happened internally as they learned how to work on teams, how to be accountable to their classmates, how to show up, how to take risk, how to, be themselves in the moment. All those things are part of creating a performance, and they make masks. And so we do a layered creative expression experience. They build the set, they make their masks, they help create costumes from stuff we bring in. They actually write a lot of the dialogue and record it. They sing songs on the stage together that are highly adaptable to their level of singing. So we're not creating performances at the end of that residency that make people cringe, which is one of my big passions, to get rid of that community performance that that is based on taking something and laying it on people that they're not capable of doing. 9-year-olds doing chorus line, for example. It's like,
I know
you know,
exactly what you're talking about. I grew
right,
up in musical theater. Yeah.
right, exactly. So these performances, people are weeping during them. They see these beautiful children exposing their lives and themselves in a beautiful way, all very safely done, and also surrounded by professionals who are guiding them, by beautiful sets and video, by live music from our musician who travels with us and composes live for them. So it's a very integrated and professional looking piece, and yet it's like nothing anybody's ever seen, because it's not a narrative, right? It's a sort of a moment by moment, more like a I can't think what the word is, but cabaret, more like a cabaret. So yeah, so that in the schools, that's the kind of arc that we aim for, is to, and other times we just go in and we play with the kids one time and do a demo so the teachers can see, and then maybe we get the teacher to come and learn our stuff, or maybe after the demo they invite us back. It's a process of engaging people. And now, as you already mentioned, there's so much more openness. And and because now people understand the value, so there's a lot less education for us and a lot more showing up and bringing it. And I used to have a thing that the teachers wouldn't really be interested in what we had to say, that they would be like, we're here every day, all day doing this, and you come in with your ooby gooby stuff, and think you're gonna save us or whatever. And that was never true. Every teacher we've worked with, which is thousands, have been like, we're open, we want to know, we're looking for ways to increase the learning of our children. We're absolutely excited to have new ideas. We never have had a teacher who in any way kicked back. They were always, yeah, yeah. I mean, a group of people who are so much want their kids to learn and to be happy. I have so much respect for them. And during this pandemic, it's unbelievable what our teachers have been through. So we spent enormous numbers of hours on Zooming into the classrooms with the teachers to support them, to give them a break, to give their kids another way of seeing themselves as best we could on Zoom. But that's turning the wheel in the youth outreach anyway.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question about the teachers and how they responded, because I would think, as a teacher, if you had a tool that you could use that would make your students even just, disperse some energy, that would be a wonderful thing. So I can imagine that they are very responsive to that, because it's not easy. I've never been a teacher with children, and I can't imagine
I know,
myself
I
in a
know.
classroom with all those kids every
No.
day. So I appreciate that. But yeah.
Well, yeah, the other thing that happens is we work with that, which you and I know about so deeply, but it's a hard concept to get, which is that if you want to change something in your life, you have to change it from the inside, not the outside. And all of the teacher training is that they have to modify the external in the room, classroom management, change what's happening in the room. And that involves discipline and timeouts and sending kids to the principal, or just various kinds of restrictive, inhibitive, limitation behavior. And what we train the teachers in is, when things are going crazy outside, to tune into what's going on inside them, make a shift there, and then see what happens outside. And they've written these beautiful emails saying it's a miracle. I take a breath, I take a moment, I turn to the blackboard, I tune into myself. I realize I'm mad at my husband, I'm exhausted, I'm hungry, I'm frustrated, I need a break, whatever. And I take some breaths and I come back, and what was there is not there anymore. It's because it's about perception. Everything is about perception, right? And things are only come into existence because we perceive them. And so it's a powerful, powerful thing for the teacher to change her perception of the room and watch how the whole room changes. And even just as we know, the vibrational beings that we are. So if I put out a different vibration into the room, I call forth a different vibration into the room. And I mean, when we work with these kids, I can't tell you, Leslie, how absolutely willing they are. It's like they'll do anything you ask them to do if you just give them a moment and just accept them as they are in the moment, right now, show up as you are, and we'll see what happens together, which is really different than what they're used to. So,
I think it's only recently, though, that the concept of co-regulation has again come into mainstream of how when we change our perception or our state of mind, how impacting that is on other people and their nervous system. So again, that's one of those things that I think people who have been doing healing, self-healing, whatever kind of healing, or some kind of spiritual practice, maybe they have that concept within themselves of changing themselves, but I think it's only recently that that's really come into mainstream, and probably because people are researching it and science is backing that now it's acceptable somehow. But never mind if it works.
well, yeah, I
It's a
think
tool, use it.
absolutely. And I think what you said is really important, that it's not just which came first, the chicken or the egg, but it's not just the research. It's as a as a humanity, as a people of the earth, we are always evolving. We're always going up that scale that Ken Wilber talks about, of the evolving of culture, right? And down here, we're evolving as human beings. So those two are both happening at the same time. But that evolution opens up the door for the research to actually, for anybody to even think of the research, right? For the research to actually happen. And that sense of the evolving of humanity has been comforting to me. And instead of saying, well, why didn't people know this 25 years ago? It's like, no, it's not about that. It's about, we didn't know what we know now 25 years ago either. And to trust that, I remember hearing this, I don't remember who said it, but that, we were once a single cell amoeba. And that single cell amoeba didn't say, I'm going to evolve. And then now I'll evolve some more, and now I'll evolve some more, right? It just happens. Evolution it will happen. We will evolve. Even if we don't even know it or want to, we will evolve. And that gave me an optimism, a sense that we will keep evolving, and I will keep evolving and learning. And so I think that's, the under all the other stuff that's happening up here that's kind of incomprehensible. We simply cannot conceive of some of what's going on at that level. There's a deep grassroots evolution towards well-being that is really always there, and we can trust that. It's like, to me, it's like trusting the universal flow of love from the great spirits. It's always there. We're always moving, and we can trust that. And gosh knows the difference between me at age 50 and me at age 74 is incredible. And much of that happened without me even knowing it was happening, just with the intention, just saying, I'm here, I'm ready to serve, evolve me, and then it happens.
And I think something that we spoke about before we actually started the podcast was about building a base and about how
Hmm.
how
Yeah.
evolving slowly is a good thing. And I think that there were people who realized certain things early on,
Yes.
and those are the people that put down the stakes, that start to build that base. And now it's more mainstream, but somebody had to come along and begin to build that base for everybody else to then build their piece on top of that. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it does evolve,
Yeah.
and I imagine it reaches a critical mass, that it begins slowly, and then at some point there is some kind of a critical mass that tips things, and maybe that's when it becomes more mainstream. But I think it's important, whoever
Yeah.
is
I
doing
mean,
that work, to just keep doing it, because it's all coming.
that's beautiful what you're saying. It's like Malcolm Gladwell's tipping point, right? That is just so important. And the reason that's important is we have to believe that change is happening all the time, whether we actually always see it or not. You know, it's even like when raising my children, just knowing that whatever's happening now, the next thing will be happening soon. It's like I remember once when my daughter said, you know, she has these screaming things. What do I do when she has these screaming things? You know, it's like, well, just wait, because in 2 weeks she'll be doing something else.
Uh-huh.
That'll be
Yep.
gone, and it'll be a next challenge.
I
You
think
know,
I've said the same thing. Yes, exactly.
it's like it's not forever. And but I love what you said about the tipping point, because every time I have any discouragement, you know, whether it's Trump or whether it's, I realize we probably shouldn't mention political things, but you know, whatever it is that discourages us, right? That the place that you can land is back in trusting in that universe, in that great spirit, in that flow, in that evolution, and knowing that it's not going to be this way all the time, and that it will keep changing, and everything that's happening is part of that change, you know, part of what makes that change possible, even though it looks pretty bad at the moment. You know, it's a very, I think it's a hard thing to accept sometimes. But the older I get, the more I see that flow through time, you know, and the way things that looked horrible 20 years ago are informing what's good today. And for me, my father's, you know, obvious illness and intense violence and unbelievable um, story that he put on his children. Everything I do today, I owe to that story. And that's something that when I would say that in the past, people would say that's sick, you know, and now they say that's true, right? So it has, people have begun to understand that all of who we are is like the different things that happen to us. So we always think of ourselves as putting a window in the wall of whoever we're working with. We're not the whole story. We're not the only answer. We're not the only way. We are the truth, right? But we are part of the evolution of those people in their lives. And so we make our contribution, and we know that will open them to the next contribution, whatever that contribution might be and whoever it may come from. And that comes back, Leslie, to something really powerful for me about building the field. You just said about building the base. I love that, that we don't compete with each other as practitioners, as dancers, as bringers of love and embodiment, right? We want to cooperate and co-create and build that field, because as that field is built, as that base is built, it grows and its effectiveness. And so if our vision is what we're focused on, then we want to build a field, which is really different than focusing on the numbers in my business, my company, my personal success, which is valuable too, but that's not the baseline. The baseline is building that field. And I feel like so many people have been a part of uncompetitively co-creating that field of well-being that comes through embodiment. But that's the base. The base is embodiment, no matter what else we're doing.
And I think, going back to where we started, that dancers have an advantage, because I think when you dance,
Yes.
you glimpse that. Even if you're dancing somebody else's dance and it's not spontaneous dance, I think you are embodied. You're having a relationship, at least with your body and some kind of music, or perhaps
Yes.
other people. And so I think that dancers have the advantage because they glimpse that. Even if it can be bigger, or they can do more with it, or be more creative, or take it somewhere else. I think any kind of dance that you do
Yes.
gives you that experience. So you've kind of glimpsed behind the veil, not knowing even that that's what you're doing, but that door just opens kind of spontaneously through dance.
Well, I love that you're saying that because we work a lot with university students in dance and theater and communication departments and seeking to find those students who want to do community crossover, who want to bring what they know into their communities and to certify them in our work. And excuse me, and that's the first thing I tell them. You already know all this. You have so much that you know that you don't know, right? You know about the body and about moving in the body and about dance and about music and about play and about community and about team building and about performing. And they have the base, you know. The trick is, can they open that up in a way that does not need people to be something that they are not. And that's a lesson coming out of the dance world, where we try to be something. I was in that formal dance world trying to be something I was not, you know, and and look like something I did not look like, you know, that striving. And that's works for some people, but for all dancers, there's another aspect, another operating system, so to speak, that is really based in evolving the consciousness of humanity, and they can do that. And I just so agree with you that that population has that advantage. And it's more young dancers and young movers and young artists and young poets and young, you know, designers are interested in how can they interface that with their communities. They really care. This younger millennial and younger generation, they are a generation that cares about other people. And sometimes I think people don't realize that because they aren't walking the traditional cultural walk. But I have children that age and grandchildren that age, and they'll give their homes to people, they'll open their hearts to people. Sometimes they're not able to get on the path to success as quickly, which makes them look like they might not be quite who they should be in a cultural standard that we don't adhere to in our group. But they bring heart, they bring caring, they bring an openness. And these young folks are just blowing things apart in our community. And we're learning so much from them, things that I could never have known. I didn't grow up like they grew up, you know? So I love the intergenerationalness of that, you know, the way that they learn from us and we learn from them. And the biggest thing with this group of youngsters for us is letting go of those cultural stories even more and entering into the flow. What does the flow of the moment of life look like? And how do I bring that to myself and to those around me? And that's, you know, I think that goes way back to the hippie days, right? Be in the flow. But it's deeply, profoundly powerful truth. It's when we're in the flow that we can actually access our magic.
And I think it's so important to have different age groups working together. And this was, at least in the time that I lived in the United States, this wasn't something that was happening. You saw this in more traditional cultures who had extended families. I see that a lot in Egypt. You have, the grandparents are taking care of the grandchildren, or
Yep.
they're all together, they're all playing together, all the different ages. And I do think we have so much to learn from each other, but it gets my experience of the West is putting people in these brackets of
Mhm.
age groups and things like that. And I think that's unfortunate because we do all benefit from each other and those different age groups. So that's wonderful to know that those people are all working together and sharing their gifts.
Well, you know, I love what you're saying because we not only warehouse our children into these, you know, school systems that separate them by age and by ability and all of that, but we warehouse our elders and our work in
Mhm.
the assisted living homes, in the various retirement centers. It's just unbelievable, the isolation and loneliness that we have put as a system into place. And you know, we'll bring preschoolers into the nursing home, and and the whole place lights up, and they're like in heaven just getting to be around those little kids and middle schoolers. We brought a group of middle schools into a Medicaid assisted living center here in Boulder, and some of the kids had to leave. They were unable to cope with the sadness of the elders, or the drooling, or the illness, or the sleepy grogginess, because many of them are drugged, and they started crying, and their teacher had to go outside and help them, just deal with. They'd never been around elders at all. They'd
Yeah.
never seen aging. And most of our Latin American children came in and went right over and started talking to the people. They have elders in their homes. They live with grandparents in their homes, and people go, "Oh my gosh, they've got, way too many people, 6 families in those homes." And no, they've got a whole community in those homes of ages and people. And so we have so much to learn cross culturally too, in terms of the ways in which, we have isolated ourselves and our elders and our energies. And I mean, it's happening. I mean, even though I focus on what we have to learn, I have to keep coming back to the fact that we are learning, and we are crossing cultures, and all of us are growing up in our ability, especially those of us from so much privilege, in our ability to open up to what we have to learn, and things we didn't know that we're ready to know. So it's a powerful change time on the earth, and therefore it's a little bit chaotic. And so how do we stay in our bodies and navigate chaos? And that's one of the things we've played with a lot, is moving in chaos, and letting our bodies acclimate to chaos and sound and movement, so that we can manage the chaos that's happening in the world all the time. It's a very complex time, in my opinion, to be living on the earth. I suppose everybody felt that way in their time, different kinds of complexity. But whenever there's a huge evolution, a huge surge forward into new beginnings, there has to be chaos. That's part of what has to happen to create the new beginning. And I'm grateful to be here during this time, however challenging it may be at times.
And I think that that's one of the challenges, because again, that's an aspect of the feminine, is the chaos. So we need to,
Hmm.
I think, as that comes back into our consciousness for both men and women, that ability to deal with chaos and the unknown is a skill that we need to acquire, and
Hmm.
one that has been programmed into us that no, there should be no unknowns. We have to think of every scenario before it happens. Well, you don't. If you're dynamic, and here's another
Yeah,
place that dance is a beautiful analogy. If you can be dynamic, when things change, you can change. You can turn on a dime. You can do whatever needs to be done. So I think that dance is a great way to learn that, but that is something that we need to learn, and we won't learn it unless we're forced to, probably. As human
yeah.
beings, we tend to be really stubborn. So because I remember saying this to a group of women in a women's circle, that the new skill that we had
Mm.
to learn was to embrace chaos. And I don't think anybody understood what I was talking about, why that's so important, but it really is. Just
Yeah,
that ability not to be flustered when things don't go the way you think they're going to go, and to know that there is a plan B. And if you're a creative person, you will figure it out. And
yeah,
that is such an important skill to have, but one that's been minimized, I think, diminished the importance of it, at least to believe that we don't need to do that if we've thought of every scenario. But it's never any of the scenarios that you think it's going to be. So I think having that skill is more useful.
yeah. That's really powerful. I mean, I think what we think of as stubborn is just fear, incredible fear, and fear of the unknown. And I think the pandemic has done an incredible awakening around that, because we think we can create certainty, but we can't. And the pandemic has been a situation of living where we can't create certainty, living in uncertainty. We also can't control other people. We can't get people to get vaccinated if we want them to, or we can't get people to not get vaccinated if we think they shouldn't. I mean, all those illusions that we had that we could control externals or that we could have certainty. The pandemic has really been shaking that up. It's been, loosening that grip. And I think the stress on our bodies of learning that lesson has been high. The number of people who have not been able to navigate that chaos and that uncertainty. And I love what you said. I can say that to people, but that won't do it. They don't hear it. If they move it, if they feel it in their bodies,
Mm-hmm.
now they have a chance of understanding, not here, but embodied understanding. And once the body has that knowing, that reference point, it will manifest through the rest of our lives. I mean, the body is the wisdom, it's the guide. And so I love what you said. It's like it doesn't we aren't going to be able to live in that uncertainty, live in that chaos by trying to do it. It won't work. Trying just puts us in that same striving system of patriarchal goal system, right? From the feminine system, we will learn this by breathing and moving it in our bodies, by coming into relationship to our own beloved selves, by finding what needs loving here. And that's the most important question I think we can ask whenever we feel uncomfortable, unrest, any kind of stress. I wonder what needs loving here. I wonder what needs loving here. Not, I wonder what I can change out there and
Mm-hmm.
fix out there, and not even what I can fix in here, but what needs loving here. And it's a powerful tool to carry with you every day. I wonder what needs loving here. And something always comes in. You always get an answer.
Yes.
The heart has only one prayer that is always connected to the universe, right? And that is the prayer for wholeness, the prayer for peace. And so every time we come back to the heart, it will pray for our peace, for our wholeness, and our ability to really love and appreciate who we are so we can manifest that out to others. Very different model than what you and I grew up in. Don't be conceited, don't be prideful, don't be arrogant, the last thing in the world I was supposed to do is love myself. And I
Yes,
just,
it was considered arrogant in our day.
yeah, our day. I like that.
But again, I think a big part of that is the trust.
Yeah,
To
it
trust that
is.
there is an answer.
Yeah. And trusting in something greater than ourselves to find that answer, that belief that from the ego I can solve problems takes me into that story of despair and hopelessness. And which is, if I go down through my absolutely enlightened, beautiful, knowing essence, body self, I can come out on the other side, which is what would be the best response for the good of all? How could I? And I get to be in that good of all. That's not just other, that includes me. How can I respond from that place of the good of all? And from there, things begin to come back into peacefulness, because there is always an answer to what is for the good of all here. And I don't know your answer, and you don't know my answer. That's the deepest truth. I have to answer that from inside my own heart's knowing. And once I've done that, I'm now in alignment, right? I'm breathing and moving in alignment with the truth that came from my good of all. And we always need our ego, and we will always find ourselves there and love ourselves there and be kind to ourselves there, and then ask for something more. I'd like to have both, both.
And again, I think dance is such a wonderful way to learn that concept of balance,
Yeah.
because if you're not balanced, you're going to fall. And so it's constantly challenging you to find your center and to find that way to move with whatever happens to be going on.
Yeah, that is so wise, Leslie. I mean, it's all about balance, isn't it? You know, it's never one or the other. It's never either or. And we're so culturally conditioned to either or. And I often find myself, wait, Elena, you're back in either or. You know, drop back in to a moving, breathing, balanced way and see what wants to be loved here, you know, for sure. I mean, one of the exercises I recommend to everybody to play with today is put music on and just fall off balance. Just run around the room off balance here and off balance here and off balance here and play with letting your body experience just falling into the truth, falling. We can't walk without falling. Walking is going off balance. It is, and we improvise all the time just to stay standing, right? And so to play with that, to push the edges of that, feel the edges of your body and just dance around off balance and then land two-footed on both feet and feel that ah that strength of actually being present in that moment, two-footed, and then fall off again, knowing that both are there. You can always come back to both feet. It's there for you. And the more you navigate the joy of being off balance, the less we fight the story we're living in. It can be fun.
And that brings us back to trust. That
It
you
does.
trust that you will land on your 2 feet. And again, I
Yeah.
think we probably trust our bodies that we will land on our 2 feet more than we trust kind of, the universe that we're going to get the right answer or go in the right direction. So again, if we can practice that, if we can gain those skills through movement, I think that's an important way to build up that confidence about our
Yeah.
abilities.
I'm so with you. I think it may be the only way. We can only build that trust and recondition ourselves to trust because most of us
Mhm.
had too much trauma to grow up with trust. And
Yes.
so, of various levels, if we recondition that trust through the body, then we have a chance because I'm so with you. It's all about trust. It's all about trusting greater beings, trusting the universe, trusting the universal love, trusting ourselves, trusting our friends, our neighbors, trusting the source, however we want to look at it. It's all about trust. And it's only through the body that we can regain the knowledge of what it means to trust, the body knowledge, because we've lost it. And so it's a great thing to reclaim. We don't have to create something new. Just reclaim what is already sitting right there in our bodies. It is absolutely already there. Just like you say, land on 2 feet, see what that feels like, see what it feels like
Mhm.
to be off, to be one-footed. Because one-footed is creative. One-footed has a lot of possibility in it, and two-footed has a lot of strength and ground. And we need both, We need to be able to navigate both sides of that story. At least that's my belief.
I agree. Absolutely. Yes. I want to go back to turning the wheel. So you have these outreach programs and you have programs to to teach teachers. What other ways? What else are you doing? What other kind of programs do you have?
Wow, what a great question. Thank you for that question. We have a summer retreat at Whidbey Institute, which is off the coast of Seattle on a beautiful island. That is June 19th to 25th in 2022. We're hoping to be together again if things go the way we can all trust they will. Um, and and that you can find all the information about that on turningthewheel.org. Um, and we
And
have,
this is a retreat for people to learn how to teach, or it's just for them to do the process, or what kind of, I mean,
you're
these
so right.
retreats are for what?
Yeah, your questions are so astute. So that is actually one of our issues that we have to answer. So thank you, which is it's a combination, right? A constant combination of educators who want to be immersed in this work and people who just want to grow and evolve themselves and learn more about what it means to be in their bodies. It's intergenerational. There are full scholarships for teens starting at 16 years and older so that we bring our teens into the mix and they don't have to be economically capable of doing it. We go all the way up to ages 90 in the groups of people who come. And sometimes I'll be the oldest one there at 74. I'm becoming one of the elders, which is kind of hard to grok sometimes. And so it's a mixture of ages and backgrounds and ethnic abilities. There's scholarships for caretakers, scholarships for teachers, all kinds of possibilities to get people there. There's never more than 40 people and probably less than that this first year as we transition the pandemic. And there's everything in the afternoon from like drumming and yoga and theater, improv and fine arts. And, you can focus on certain interests in the afternoon. The mornings we dance and play and take journeys together, meditative journeys. And in the evenings we play. It's like a rich immersion in the creative arts, and it's in a beautiful environment where you can walk the land and be a part of the great earth story that is just the Whitby Institute is a gorgeous place with incredibly healthy organic food and just a week of really deepening into who you are as a teacher, as a therapist, as a mother, as a human on the earth, so that you can bring forth more, you can love more of what needs loving here, basically. And it's a rare opportunity to drop into that kind of environment where you can focus on yourself in community. And because we learn so much from each other, it's such a, I love one-on-one coaching and I love doing it. And there's nothing that substitutes for a group and what you can learn from the intelligence of the group. And then we have coaching certification starting in January, which I'm very excited about. Where a brand new program where people can become what we call conscious coaches. So conscious coaching, which is body coaching from the body and from body awareness, and it will last for 6 months, and people will be meeting with us twice a month and practicing with each other during that 3 hours of time twice a month, and become certified coaches by the end of the 6 months with ongoing mentoring and support as they enter that, if they would like to do that, or they can just learn that our system of certified conscious coaching and bring it into the coaching they're already doing, integrate it with all the magic they already have. So it's like more stuff for your basket, right? And so I'm very excited about that. It will launch in the next couple of weeks in terms of people being able to know about it on our website, and then start in January. We have a certification track where you can, from any place in the country, become a certified facilitator and be able to work in the schools and nursing homes and community rehab centers, or any group you want to focus on, and or bring that training into the work you're already doing as a therapist. Again, embodied interventions, which are quite different, actually. So yeah, lots of ways to get involved. You can become a part of our community performances, which we're hoping will start up again in the fall of 2022. We have a touring performance that had to be shut down called Stardust and Water, um, for the pandemic. And so as that reopens, that it will involve in every community it happens in, there's 45 people from the community who are folded in to a group of traveling professionals. So it's a highly produced, beautiful piece that, and this one focuses on the potential for healing from wherever we come from and go to. So yeah, an awful lot going on. And if you email us, we have all kinds of beautiful people, some who've been with me for 32 years, who will answer you back and have a conversation with you about how you might like to interface. Again, it's just turningthewheel.org. So, and easy way to plug in. And we are so open to new people, new ideas, new possibilities, new directions, new places to go. It's how I think Leslie and I talked about this before. We grew organically. We did not decide to go to these cities. We actually had people who were in those cities who wanted to start an organization there. So we have groups in Wilmington, North Carolina, and Los Angeles, and um, Seattle, Washington, and Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and Boulder, Colorado, obviously. I mean, all different places across the country. Missoula, Montana has a huge program where you can plug in and join and be a part of what's going on and learn a model that is not only time proven effective, but also will make your life feel better, will help you love you as you love others. So it's a moving, breathing process with us, and it won't land like here's the way you teach 6 classes. That's not how it is. It's like here's the way you show up with an open heart and work with who's in front of you and use this huge basket of possible games to play and ways to be to interface with the folks who are there. That was
Excellent.
a long answer.
Never mind.
Thank you.
It's what we need to hear. So again, the website is www.turningthewheel.org. For anyone who's interested, you can go there and find out about the events and all of what's going on. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
And
for having me, Leslie. This was really relaxing and lovely to be with you. It's like we're such in the same tribe, and I'm so grateful to you for doing this work to keep getting this word out. It's such a gift. Thank you.
well, thank you. And I'm so excited to hear about what you're doing. Like I said, I try to do some research, but I really enjoy talking to people when I don't know exactly what they're going to say to me. So this has been such a pleasure to talk to you, and I will look more deeply into your work because I think it's important, and I hope people watching will as well, because this is an important topic that. As I said, it's come to mainstream, and your organization has been there a long time. So I'm sure you have a lot of resources to offer people who are in these situations or who would like to work with other people who are in situations where they could help. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Well, I learned a lot. And as I said, this is a topic that's been in my mind recently for at least the last month or two. So I'm happy to have these resources to be able to dig in deeper. So I just want to tell you about next month's podcast. That will be Jennifer Jimenez. She's the founder and creator of Transcendence and the Health and Wellness Division of Brave Thinking Institute. And that will be on the 7th of November. So I hope you'll be able to join us for that. And if you enjoyed this, I hope you enjoyed this talk. Please check out the other episodes and like and share. And if you want to be notified when things are put up on my channel, you can hit that little bell and you will get informed. And if you're listening to this as a podcast, same thing, please like and share with your friends. And I hope that you will join us next month when we have Jennifer with us. All right. Well, thank you for being here and have a great day. Bye-bye.